Fall sports have finally come to the end. The volleyball team finished on top of the MAC, and the men's hockey team faced UMass in a 2-game series. Are they starting to turn their season around? Our analysts will discuss all that and more. Bobcat Breakdown starts right now. Welcome to Bobcat Breakdown. I'm Shannon Tierney. We have a great show planned for tonight. We have two veteran analysts on the desk tonight, and they're not wearing ties. Chris Stacy and Tom Krasnowski. How are we doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Shannon. Always a pleasure to be sharing the desk with Chris Stacy, even if we don't have any ties.
It's a casual night. It's a casual night.
All right, well, let's kick things off. Fall sports wrapped up over break as the Quinnipiac volleyball team season came to an end. After beating the 3-seed Rider, Quinnipiac moved on to beat the 2-seed Canisius to advance to the MAC championship. They ended up losing to Fairfield, but the team still exceeded many expectations just by making it to the championship. Was what we saw from this playoff run out of the ordinary, or could they have been like this all year?
Well, yeah, I think that it was out of the ordinary for this team. I mean, they just weren't playing at this level all year. But there's reasons for that, right? This is a young team. More than half of it is underclassmen. They have a new coach, Kyle Robinson, who, whenever there's a new coach, you have to install your system. It takes time for these things. And they really had to figure out what their identity was. And you know what? By the time the playoffs came around, they did figure it out. That identity is to be a gritty defensive team. During the regular season, they averaged 13 digs per set. In the playoffs, they averaged almost 18 digs per set. The blocks also went up from almost 7 per game to over 14 per game in the playoffs. They really won with some defense, and that takes time to implement. New coach, young players. These things take time. They figured things out. This couldn't have been them all year. They needed that growing time to really turn things on for the playoffs, and remarkably, they were able to get it done, at the season's brightest moments.
Tom, I always talk about how at this point of the season, like beginning of the season, the freshmen or the first years, at this point of the season, they're not first years anymore. They've had that experience in their belt, and that's exactly what we saw here. And I'm looking at the regular season here. 5 games out of the 18 conference games they've played, those 5 games, those were the only 5 games that went to 5 sets. So they weren't really playing those close games. But then obviously they got the experience, and they beat the 3 and 2 seeds. So that was completely unexpected. And I just have to, I'm going to yield to redundancy what you said. It was very out of the ordinary. So. Even if you were watching these games too, the players even like after the wins, the celebrations, they knew they were doing something special. They were like very, very like lively, and very happy that they were able to beat these two teams that not many people expected them to do. And they obviously went on to lose to Fairfield, who is a powerhouse in the MAC.
This team won 4 of its last 7 regular season contests, and if you count the playoffs, I guess that makes 7 out of 10, which is really incredible. It took time to get there, but they're here now.
Yes.
They're here now, but the Bobcats obviously fell short in the championship. What would a MAC championship have meant to this program in Kyle Robertson's first year?
I think it would have been everything. After the struggle they've had, this is a young team. This is a team that's had ups and downs all season. This is a team that's implemented a new culture with Robinson. That was prevalent in the beginning of the year when we talked about how, I remember Katie O'Keefe was talking about how Kyle Robinson was trying to make this a family atmosphere and put a new culture onto this team after Chris Saprinsky left. So it would have been a lot of things, especially for a first-year coach, and not just for this team now, but for teams going forward. Like, this is the standard that Quinnipiac volleyball has set forth because of this first-year team. They built the foundation of what this program is about and what Kyle Robinson wants his team to be about. And that could help with recruiting, too. You see that Quinnipiac has success, like maybe someone wants to be a part of that going forward, and they decide maybe I'm going to come to Quinnipiac instead of another MAC school. That could be huge too.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there, because I think obviously while the championship would have meant a lot, for a rookie head coach and all these young players, it would have been a real great arrival for this new dawn of this program. I still think they're going to reap a lot of the rewards that they would have gotten with that championship. I think Quinnipiac volleyball is back on the map now. We've already know who Robinson can recruit. Among his 2 freshmen first years that he recruited, one of them was Ariana Diaz, and she was one of the very best players all year for this team. They're going to get recruits. People are going to want to see They like what they see from Kyle Robinson and his squad of just 1 year. I think, well, they didn't get the title, they didn't get the ring, the send-off for their good players. They're still going to reap a lot of the rewards that would have came from it. I think getting there is obviously just a huge accomplishment for this team. They weren't really expecting it. It's the fact that they got there. I mean, to me, it's not as good, but it is almost just as good for this program.
And one thing we didn't mention is the senior class, who's been through ups and downs their 4 years here. Obviously, they came in with Saplinski their first year, my freshman year. They played very well. They finished second in the MAC, but all the ups and downs they had those next 2 years weren't as successful. And then last year with the firing of their head coach, and now this year with the new coach reaching to the MAC championship, that's huge for the seniors.
Yeah, the expectations weren't very high for this team going to the season. Does the team making the MAC championship change your guys' expectations for the team next year?
Very much. Absolutely it does. When you look at teams in Quinnipiac that have finally gotten over the hump in the MAC, either gotten to a finals or won, the expectations did change, and they had to meet them, and they did meet them for the most part. Look at men's basketball 2 years ago when they had that big playoff run. Expectations raised the next year, and they mostly met them. The baseball team, after winning the MAC last year, this year expectations are high, so why should volleyball be any different? I think the big thing here is that they reestablished themselves. You had mentioned they had success under Saplinski in the past, but they had kind of strayed away from that the last 2 years. So I think now they have that stigma back in the conference. The other thing, not only are the expectations high for themselves, it's high in the conference. Quinnipiac won't be able to sneak up on anybody anymore. They are back. The MAC needs to view them as a powerhouse because they just knocked off the 2 seed, the 3 seed, and they took the 1 seed to 4 sets. So if everyone else is looking at them as having arrived, they need to look at that way themselves too.
I love how you said they reestablished themselves in the MAC, and I agree with you. I think this does raise the expectations for next year. I thought the expectations for next year were high. I like, again, going back to that family atmosphere and the culture they developed here, they were high, but now they're even higher. So there's a little bit less of room for error now next year. So they kind of put a little bit more pressure on themselves for next year, but this did raise my expectations going into next year. So I'm not saying it's championship or bust. Fairfield is still in this conference, and that's the team to be reckoned with. But I think they still need to go I still expect them to go far in the MAC tournament.
7 to 9 conference wins isn't going to do it anymore moving forward for this team.
Absolutely.
All right, well, a lot happened in the world of Quinnipiac sports over Thanksgiving break. A few of our winter sports beat reporters are here to catch you up on anything you missed.
Thanks, Shannon. So women's basketball this past weekend had 0-2 games over break, so not the best performance. Mainly the reason for that is because the defense was a major issue, Brian. Talk about over 50% shooting from the field from Maryland, as well as 54% from the field from Harvard in that game when they go down the road, 55% from 3. Brian, Harvard was a team that didn't even average only 60 points a game going into that. They had 77 points against Quinnipiac at that game. So simply the defense has to improve for this Quinnipiac Bobcats team. Right now the record's 1-4. They got to look to improve that for the future.
We got tough competition on the women's side. Also tough competition on the men's side. Quinnipiac men's basketball hosted the Bobcats Invitational for the first time ever. Bobcats went 2-1. They won the first 2 games against Albany, Presbyterian, and fell on Sunday. The final game to Sacred Heart. Now, Albany and Sacred Heart are 2 really good major teams. They're going to be very good. Albany in the America East, Sacred Heart in the NEC is going to be one of the top teams there. And what I saw a lot of was Rich Kelly the first 2 games really contributed. Over 20 points in both of those games, Friday and Saturday. Sunday he struggled a bit, and for the most part, a lot of the team struggled a little bit in that Sunday game. Sacred Heart obviously took advantage, and Quinnipiac was not able to come up with 3 wins in 3 days. And that's a tough thing to overcome. That's a tough thing to handle for this young team, and it's a great learning experience for the future for this men's basketball team.
The Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team feasted over Thanksgiving break, going 3-0-1. Abby Ives was solid in net, earning back-to-back ECAC Goaltender of the Week honors. Meanwhile, on the offensive end, Sarah Evkutu Godbout stays hot, scoring 7 goals in her last 8 games, already surpassing her career high in goals in a single season. Now on to the men's side, Steve.
Yeah, and the men's team did a little less feasting this weekend, but they did come out with a very big win at number 10 at UMass on Saturday. They split with the Minutemen. They actually broke a 15-game home winning streak by the UMass Minutemen. Goals by Alex Whalen, who's been really good getting back into the lineup. He's really jumped into, he's kind of been a plug-and-play guy. You put him really anywhere in the lineup, no matter where, first line, second line, third line. You can put him on defense right now, and he'll still be scoring goals. So it'll be really interesting to see, now that they got this month off, kind of a subpar first half of the year. We're really interested to see how they use this first half, kind of learn from it, take this break, and get into the second half. So really excited to see to what we got. But let's send it back to Shannon at the desk.
Thanks, Steve. Now let's take things over to the ice as the Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team won the 2019 Nutmeg Classic over the weekend. Daisy, who stood out most to you this weekend?
Well, I think Tom would say this is a cop-out answer for me, but I think it's Abby Ives. She had a career-high saves with 42 saves against the number 10 team in the country, and then 35 saves against Yale, in-state rival. And, over the weekend, she stopped 76 out of 79 shots faced. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And she was also named the NCAA one of women's hockey 3 stars of the week. So that's a lot of hardware to bring home in 1 week. It's a lot of pucks to stop in 1 week. So she is my standout player for this week, and I think deservingly so.
It is a lot of hardware, but I already know Abby Ives is an elite level goaltender. She already stood out to me 2-3 years ago already. Like she is a standout player. For me, I took this question, I guess I interpret it a little bit differently. Who stood out to me? That was Sarah Evkutu-Gadbu. For years, we've been talking about how this team needs someone dependable to score on, someone they can go to in the guts of the game to get these late game goals, game tying, game winning goals. Well, she tied the game on Friday, and she won the game on Saturday with her 2 goals. So she's got goals now in 6 of her last 7 contests, so she's red hot right now. She's the goal scorer that this team has been missing for the last couple of years. So Sarah Evkutu-Gadbu's performance for me, becoming that elite level goal scorer they can count on, that stood out to me. Without her goals, they might not ever tied or won those games. They were very critical for her and for the team, and she found a way to pull them out. And yeah, I think she's my standout player for that.
Can't disagree with you on that one.
2 good choices.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This team has played well against high-ranked teams like Minnesota Duluth and Clarkson. What do they need to do to bring this same energy over to a smaller team?
Well, I think it's true that this team plays to its competition, right? They've tied Clarkson, who's number 5. They've beaten number 10, Minnesota Duluth. They've lost by only 1 and 2 goals to top 3 teams like Cornell, But they're just 7-4-2 against unranked opponents. That needs to be a little bit higher. I think the attack mentality is going to go a long way for this team with that. This team does have a little more offense than in past years. We explained that with Kutu-Gadbu. But the shooting percentage is a little higher. The shots on goal are a little higher. They need to carry that over into all their games because with Quinnipiac, I think, when they have the most success in these games against the ranked opponents, they really embrace being the underdog and making people know who Quinnipiac is and embracing that identity and we're going to be hard to play against. But it's the same thing against unranked opponents. You got to still go out there and make yourself known. So if they got to come out there with that attack mentality and really take these games because they got the talent to do it.
Yeah, when I heard this question, I thought of Pete Rozelle, and, the former NFL commissioner.
Right.
It was like any given team can beat any other given team on any given Sunday. So that's what I was thinking. Obviously, they don't have to play on Sundays, but that's what the women's ice hockey team has to go in with an attitude with these teams that might not be like these top 5 or top 10 teams. They're out for blood. They might be considered the underdog, but they have that underdog mentality like Quinnipiac does in these big time games against a Clarkson or against a Minnesota Duluth. So they can't underestimate any opponent they face, no matter what their record is, what their past have done, because you just can't, because obviously go 7-4-2.
And this team has the defense and the goaltending to bail them out, I think, to take more offensive chances against these teams. Maybe against the big games, you stick to your identity a little bit more, which is the defense and goaltending. But Abby Ives and Katie Tabin on defense, they can bail them out in some of these other games to open it up a little bit, I think.
Absolutely.
Well, it's time for our first break, but when we come back, we'll discuss where the Quinnipiac men's basketball team will end up this year and how the Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team can find more success. Stay with us.
Let's get it going. Sports Pause starts right now. Sports Pause. Sports Pause. Sports Pause. Sports Pause. Sports Pause. Sports Pause.
Sports Pause.
Sports Pause.
Cam Young drives in, bucket.
3 minutes in, Rashawn Daly's shot hits the post. However, Eamon Whalen is there to
through the center. Fortunato scores past Adam Huska. Ties the game up at 8 with a ripper past Jake McGregor.
He will keep it in his zone.
Top 5 plays of the week.
That's the top 5 plays.
This has been Sports Pause.
Hey, let's check out this park.
That's really cool. To find a great local park or forest near you, go to discovertheforest.org.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Welcome back and thanks for sticking with us. Now let's talk some basketball. Last year, Cam Young always carried the Quinnipiac men's basketball team in scoring. This year, we've seen a number of different players leading and scoring every game. Can this style of a different person carrying scoring be successful over a long period of time?
I mean, we talked about it all the time with men's soccer with Rashawn Daly not being here. It's going to have to be replaced by a committee. It worked out pretty well for them. I think it can. The only thing that I stress that this needs to happen is Rich Kelly needs to lead this committee. Maybe not in points, but he needs to, he's the point guard. And after the Presbyterian game 2 weekends ago, it really struck me what Baker Dunleavy said. Is he said, and I'll get this into this a little bit more later in my final word, but he said he trusts Rich Kelly more than other players just because of their relationship. And I think Rich Kelly is very important to this team. Like he's the leader, he's the point guard, but he's one of the guys who's been here the longest. And he was the top scorer tonight in the loss to Fairleigh Dickinson, but at the end of the game, you saw the ball was always in his hand, and he was always making the right decision, whether it be a lob to Pinckney, a lob to Marfo, or it would be a nice pass out to an Aaron Falzone. He was always making the right decisions. He's the guy I want leading my committee if I need to go by that committee style. So I think, yes, this could work, but Rich Kelly has to be the leader of this committee. And also, one other thing I'd like to add is that this committee, it's not only by scoring, it's about rebounding too. And Quinnipiac and Baker Dunleavy have been vocal about their rebounding issues they've had. And then Kevin Marfo is leading this team with 77 rebounds on the season already. The next closest guy is only in the 20s. That's not good, especially when you have a 7-footer like Seth Pinckney on the team. Obviously, he's not getting the minutes, but I think he should be a little bit more closer to that 77 rebounds. And Kevin Marfo continues to dominate on the boards, but he can only do so much when it's just him down there.
Yeah, so this worked for the soccer team, but this isn't soccer. Basketball is very much a sport where you need a closer. It's a sport where you need a guy who is going to get the minutes that everybody knows he's going to take the last shot of the game, and he still has to succeed. That's what basketball is, and it's part of what makes it so special. Late in the game, you need that closer. Right now, Quinnipiac doesn't have that guy. Rich Kelly, I'd love him to be that guy too. I'm right there with you, but right now, he's a little shy of that. He's not quite there yet. He's averaging a 41 career field goal percentage for his career, and it's below 40% for the year. I don't know if I want him taking my last shot. He's a great facilitator, but he's the best player on this team, but he needs to take a step forward. Other guys just aren't going to get it done in the late game situations. Williams can be a little inconsistent sometimes. Rigoni's been cold. I think that this team's depth, like you had sort of mentioned, it's better than it has been in past years, and that helps you keep in a game. But late in the game when it's tied, I don't know if this team knows who's taking that final shot or if they have total confidence in it, and I think that might hurt them.
I don't think you should look at Kelly's career statistics in his entire time here at Quinnipiac, because he was thrown into the fire right away as a freshman.
This year he's not shooting 40% either. So.
I know, but he was thrown in the fire right away, so it's kind of hard to look at his whole body of work, because he's improved vastly from freshman
He has.
year.
Jalen Pickett's getting the ball for Siena. E.J. Crawford, Stevie Jordan. Quinnipiac needs to find that next Cam Young guy, I think, to make it work.
Agree to disagree. So last year, Iona topped the MAC and Quinnipiac finished third for the season. How do you guys see the MAC shaping up this year, and where do you think the Bobcats will fall?
Well, I'm not going to stray too far from the preseason coaches poll. I think they know it a little bit better than I do. I'm going to stick with that. But Iona's number one until they're not. Tim Kloos has earned that right with his squad. They've been in the NCAA tournament many times.
Never bet against Tim Kloos.
No. Ryder is also a perennial MAC contender. They even got a first-place vote in the poll. Ryder is easily number 2 for me. Then after that, it's kind of a bunch-up, right? Last year it was. This year I think it will be as well. Quinnipiac was third last year. I don't think they're going to get third this year because I mentioned the star power. Siena's got it with Jalen Pickett. They've also got 3 other guys right now who are averaging double digits in points. That's star power you don't usually see in the MAC. So I'm going to pick Siena to go third because they've got so much scoring depth. I've got Quinnipiac going fourth because I think they're almost as good as last year. They're just one Cam Young away, so they'll still be pretty good. Canisius, they're a good team. I feel like they kind of they're a team that can get over expectations. You know, they can outperform them. So I'll have them at 5th, Monmouth 6th, Manhattan 7th. Any of that can be a jumble. But I think the big takeaway for me is I got Quinnipiac in that 4 seed. I think they were projected 3rd. So right around that area sounds about right.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think it's Iona's conference until someone takes it from them. So I have Iona finishing 1st, and then I have Rider 2nd. They're a very talented team, and like you said, you got that 1st place vote. I'm going to listen to the coaches. I think they know a little bit more than I do, and it is a little bit of a toss-up for. I have it written down here. It's either Siena or KU. Could come down to the regular season matchups for them for 3rd and 4th place. But I have to put like Monmouth in that mix too as well, and Canisius as well.
If it comes down to the matchups, it sure was fun last year.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, moving from the men's basketball team, let's discuss how the Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team is doing. After losing to UMass at home, the Bobcats traveled up to Amherst and beat the Minutemen 2-1. This ended their 3-game losing streak. Tom, we'll start with you. How much of a confidence boost does the team get after this weekend?
Well, Shannon, they get a big confidence boost because they don't want to lose 4 straight going into the break. That would have been brutal for this team. That would have been bad for its charisma, its identity. But the other big thing I think you can take away from this too, this is a very young team. We've talked about it a lot.
Absolutely.
This is probably the first win they're going to like really remember and cherish. Like, yeah, we were there for that UMass game. They're going to be talking about that and remembering that. So that's good for their spirits. But let's not get carried away yet and say that this saved the season or anything. This team has a lot to prove. I think the big thing is consistency, because early on in the season we said no, the defense and goaltending was holding this team back. Well, now the goal scoring is going dry. They haven't scored 4 goals since very late October, and now they're not even getting 2 or 3 in games sometimes. So it all needs to come together. They got to play 60 minutes moving forward. The players said it all year. The inconsistency is what's holding this team back right now. But you do feel good about a win against UMass. It snapped a long home winning streak for UMass, which makes you feel good if you're in the locker room. But it is on them to really run with it and get consistent coming out of this.
Like, yeah, we said this team is young, and they need that experience, and you know it's not going to happen overnight. So this is a confidence builder. This is a game that you might look back to later in the season, like, hey, this might be a turning point for this team going forward, and especially with the break coming up, it's a huge confidence boost going into like now in the middle of ECAC play where every game counts now, every game.
Okay, let's head back to the court and talk some Quinnipiac women's basketball. Over break, the women's basketball team traveled to Maryland to play the 10th-ranked Terrapins. They lost 52-107. Daisy, was it even worth it for the team to travel that far to play a team out of conference just to lose that bad?
Well, I don't think it's that far. I think they've traveled further. They've traveled to Michigan
If it's
State
about
before.
travel, then no.
I know, but it is worth it. Absolutely. I think it's important for mid-major teams. We saw it with the men's team. They traveled to Miami. That's even further. But it is important. And if you look at the coverage that John Surratt did too, he focused on Mackenzie Deweese, and it was kind of a homecoming game for her. So that's another reason that it's worth it. Obviously not the main reason, but I think that the competition, like if you're a college athlete, you love competition. You get better when you play better competition. So I think this is worth it, and this is something that Yale men's basketball does. This is like something I was watching Yale play Duke last year, and Duke was a powerhouse. They had Zion Williamson, Cam Reddish, RJ Barrett. So Yale really had no business being there. But I was listening to what the play-by-play guy was saying. I forgot who it was at this point in time, but he said that Yale plays this really tough out-of-conference schedule, and they travel all over the country. They really don't have like a huge out-of-conference game at home. And that's because they go to these games to get the seniors and their family, the seniors' families, a chance to see them play. So that's kind of why it's worth it for some. And that's why I thought of it at Mackenzie Deweese's perspective. But this game is totally worth it. I don't think you can come up with an argument why it's not worth it.
No, I'm not going to come up with an argument why it's not worth it, but I will come up with another reason why it is worth it. In addition to all of those homecomings and the senior stuff, which is all great, there's a reason Quinnipiac's doing this. I don't think they expect to go down there and win. I mean, obviously you always expect to win, but you know what I'm saying. You don't expect to win that game per se. But this team's goal and expectation is to win the MAC. And so they win the MAC. They get a seed between 11 and 16 in the NCAA tournament. They're going to face a team like a Maryland or a UConn. If not in round 1, it's going to be in round 2. It's going to have to happen eventually. And do you really want this team's first exposure to a game like that to come in the playoffs with everything on the line, the season on the line? Like, yeah, I know they got blown out 107-52, but they can take something from this. At least when they get to this point at the end of the season, they have to face a team like that for go big or go home. They can look back at this and be like, well, this is what we did then. This is what we're going to do now. You know, and we're going to learn from this. You don't want the first exposure for this team to be in the playoffs like that. It would just be a disaster if the playoff game went 107-52. I think if these two teams met again later on, it wouldn't be that widespread.
And this isn't a team that just won the MAC a bunch of times in the past. This is a team that dominated the MAC. So they need some better competition in their out of conference schedule to show that they can hang with other teams.
Well, it's time for our final break, but coming up, we have our best segment of the week, Final Roars. Stick around.
45 over 92.
180 over 111.
I had a heart attack and a cardiac arrest, and then a stroke.
Your blood pressure numbers could change your life.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
Lowering your high blood pressure could save you from a heart attack or stroke. If you've stopped your treatment plan, restart it or talk to your doctor about creating one that works better for you. Start taking the right steps at manageyourbp.org.
Now I'm, trying to get better, stronger than ever.
Whether you're on the quad in your room or off campus, tune in to Q30 News for stories from student journalists you can trust.
We're covering the latest here on campus and in the surrounding communities.
Get the news you need to know every Wednesday night.
It's time for the last words of the semester, and we got some good ones for you. Daisy, kick it off.
After a 73-64 win over Presbyterian 2 weekends ago, head coach Baker Dunleavy was asked why he thinks his point guard has been so effective late in games. To answer the question, Dunleavy started talking about the trust he has in the junior point guard. And then he said, and the thing that he said next struck me. Dunleavy said that he trusts Kelly more than other players because of their relationship they have found. And I found this interesting because when Kelly was recruited to play here at Quinnipiac, he was being pursued by then head coach Tom Moore before he was fired, before Kelly came to campus. Tom Moore moved on to become an assistant at UConn, but Kelly wanted to stay here at Quinnipiac, and Dunleavy honored Kelly's commitment. And fast forward 3 years, Kelly is the guy running the show for the Bobcats. Who would have thought the combination of Kelly and Dunleavy would have reached this point today?
Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team has long been renowned for its strong goaltending. Sydney Rossman is the consensus best goalie in program history and left big expectations behind for Abby Ives when she took over the job in fall 2017. Since then, Ives has continued the legacy and carried on as one of the top 5 goaltenders in program history. She's 3rd in Quinnipiac history in save percentage and shutouts, 4th in wins, and 5th in goals against average. She's also playing stronger than ever in her senior year, having notched 2 straight selections as the ECAC Hockey Goalie of the Week and a National Star of the Week. She stopped 76 of 79 shots last weekend, which has become commonplace for Ives throughout her tenure here. Oh, and she's an alternate captain too, a true rarity for a goalie. Although the team did not achieve the dramatic highs that characterized Rossman's time between the pipes, Ives has been every bit a worthy successor. When future generations of Quinnipiac students, athletes, and reporters look at the pantheon of legendary QU goaltenders, Abby Ives will absolutely be in that conversation.
This year, Kyle Robertson took over coaching duties for the women's volleyball team at Quinnipiac. The team had little success over the last few years, barely scrapping into the playoffs last season. And it seemed to be the same this year, as they barely made the playoffs, again entering the postseason as the 6th seed. Hopes were not high for the team, but they used their underdog status to their advantage. They took down the 3rd-seeded Rider after not even winning a set against them all year. They then beat the 2-seeded Canisius to secure a spot in the MAC championship. They ended up losing the championship 1-3 to Fairfield, who have dominated the conference for years. But still, for a coach to take a team that needed a lot of work to the MAC championship in his first year, that's impressive. So props to Kyle Robinson. And watch out Fairfield. Give them a few years and maybe there will be a new team dominating the MAC. Well, that wraps up the show and the semester here at Bobcat Breakdown. Make sure to check out updates on everything Quinnipiac at our website, q30tv.com. Or for more content, hit up our Twitter at Q30Sports. And that's also all for me this year at Q30, as I'll be in sunny LA for the spring. Bobcat Breakdown will also be saying goodbye to producer Ryan Flaherty and audio expert Izzy Agricola. For Tom and Chris on the desk, I'm Shannon Tierney. Good night and good luck on finals, Bobcat Nation.